Feature Friday, all of my quilting friends. Thank you guys so much for joining me again this Friday. I appreciate y'all being here. Hope you have something fun to look forward to this afternoon and this weekend. I am going to be speaking with you today about another one of our great editing features on our Butler robotics system. Today we're going to be going over the scale feature. The scale feature is going to allow you to change the size of your design to fit your quilt layout area. There are a lot of different ways to use the scale feature, so we're going to go over those today. And remember, as I've said in the past, there is no right way or wrong way to use the feature. It's whatever way works best for you. So hopefully you might get some different ideas on how to use the feature today. So let's get started. I'm going to turn you guys around so my display. And here I've got on the screen a rather wonky looking square. I have it wonky for a reason, and you will see that in the feature. Sometimes when we quilt, things aren't always perfectly square. I've got this going up on a slope a little bit here and really a little bit of a slope down here. We actually have a feature in our scale that's available on our mid and top of the line that can help compensate for this. And I wanted to be able to show you that today, so I did not make a perfectly square square. We are going from layout on the left-hand side of our display to our patterns, so we can put something in here to work with. I'm going to highlight patterns, and I've got my full list of patterns here. Just going to scroll up, and the one I want to use today is this little guy here. I've already got it highlighted orange, so I'm just going to hit my check mark on the right-hand side of my display to add it to my layout area, and there's my little design. When we add a pattern to our layout area, our robotic system automatically moves us into edit so we can work with our design. And all our editing features are here on the right-hand side of our display. Our scale feature is here on the inside ribbon. It is the fourth icon down. It looks like a little square with arrows coming out of two of the corners. When we highlight that, it turns orange with a white background, and we get all kinds of things available on our display to work with. So we get, the biggest thing to see are these slider bars. So we've got a vertical and a horizontal slider bar, where if we touch on the little black square that's in the middle, we can slide up and down to change the sizes vertically and horizontally. We also have minus and plus signs vertically and horizontally. We've got a little button that says set size. We've got an auto scale feature for those of you who have that feature available on your mid and top of the line. We've got a morph feature that's available on the mid and top of the line. And we've got a little lock there, and that will lock your proportions. That's available on the mid and top of the line. We also have our touchscreen options available. So let's look at how these work. Your slider bar is going to do quick changes very easily for you when you touch on your little black box in your slider bar. I'm going to touch on this one. If I move that up towards the plus, it's going to get bigger. See, I'm moving up towards my plus. And if I pull it down towards the minus, my design gets smaller. So if I'm trying to get closer to the size of my layout box, I can get closer that way. And on my horizontal, I can do the same thing. If I want to fill in this space here with my design, I can move my little slider bar over towards the plus and get closer to my space. If I want to work a little fine tuning for my size, I can always hit my plus sign to make it a little bigger, or my minus sign to make it a little smaller. I can do that with my horizontal as well. I can hit my plus to make it a little wider, or minus to make it less wide here. So you've got those options there. So you can tweak your design with your plus and minus and your slider bars to get it to fit a little bit better in your space. So you've got those options available. You also have this button here in the center that says Set Size. When you open that button there, you get a keyboard. So maybe you are working with a very specific size block and you want a very specific size design. Maybe you want your design to be 5.5 by 5.5 if you're working with a 6-inch square and you always want it to be the same size. I could enter the desired width of my pattern, assuming I want a 5.5-inch design in my width and height. So I could put in 5.5 and hit my check mark. And it wants me to enter my desired height. And I could put in 5.5, and now I've put in 5.5 by 5.5. And when I hit my check mark, my robotic system automatically shrinks down my design to that 5.5 by 5.5. And I understand that we're just looking at size right now. If we want it to get inside the box, we're going to have to move it. So once we get our size the way we want it, we will have to move it into our box. And we went over our move button a couple weeks ago. So you can set your size very specifically with your Set Size button. Now you also can use your touch screen, and those of you who prefer touch screen over using all of your slider bars and buttons, remember that you can touch on your design to get all of your nodes available. And your size or scale nodes are your blue nodes that are around the box. So if you use one of the nodes on the corners, it's going to pull your design out both height and width. But if you use one on the sides, you've just got your width or your height. So you've got options to change your size that way. And sometimes this is a quick and easy way to do this. If you have to make big changes, if you've got a really small design and you have a much larger layout space, or if you have a very small layout design and a very big design that you have to shrink down pretty fast, using your touchscreen can be pretty convenient. So now I want to look at these extra buttons that are down here that are available on our mid and top of the line. We've got a couple of buttons that are kind of helpful if you want to do things fairly quickly without a lot of work on your part. First, we're going to look at our little lock here. And your lock is a proportion lock. When this is engaged and you use your auto scale feature, it's going to change your design proportionally, both height and width wise. So I'm going to engage my lock, and then when I use my auto scale feature, my design will change proportionally for me. It will fit into my layout box, both height and width, proportionally to the original design intentions. So let's use our auto scale button. This is automatically going to take the design and fit it into my layout box. And it's going to do it proportionally to the intentions of the design because I have my lock engaged. So let's go ahead and hit my auto scale. It has now fit my design into my space proportionally to the original designer's intention and has it in here nice and easy. If I undo the lock and hit auto scale, let's see if there are any changes. It bumped it up a little bit and made it a little bit taller, but not a whole lot of difference. You might see more difference with this if it were a different pattern. Let's go ahead and remove this pattern from here and find a different pattern that may show you this a little bit better. I'm gonna put in my friend the bunny rabbit. So here's our bunny rabbit, and when we go to our scale and I put my proportion lock on here and hit our auto scale feature, it has scaled my rabbit proportionally to the size of the block that I've got. And you can see that it fits height-wise pretty well, but it's left a lot of space width-wise. And that's keeping the rabbit in its proper proportions to the original design that was intended. If I undo the lock here and hit my auto scale, you can see what's going to happen. It's made our bunny a little bit squatty, but he fills up the whole block. So some designs you may notice proportions change a lot, like with the rabbit, or maybe they don't change much at all, like that original design we were using. Let's go back and look at that design. I'm just going to delete my friend the rabbit and go back to the original pattern I was using. And there it is. We're going to go back to our scale feature, and I'm going to go ahead and autofill. So we've filled most of the space. Now remember I talked about my wonky block, and as you can see, I've got a little bit of an area down here where my block was crooked, and quite frankly, a lot of bit of area up here where my block is very crooked. And this happens on our quilts all of the time. Maybe not our fault, maybe we sewed perfectly, but because of our quilting, there has been some take up in the quilt and things have just gotten off a little bit. Maybe I want to make sure that my design here fills all the way into that corner and this corner down here. I don't want gaps in my corners of my blocks. I want it to look fully filled in, like this corner and this corner. That's what we have the morph feature for. And this is available on our mid and top of the line. When we hit the morph button, our robotic system will take the design and morph it to fit the parameters of our block. Let's do that now. When I hit morph, it has taken the design and stretched it a little bit to fit into all of my corners so that it looks the same all the way around. It's very subtle differences, but it may aesthetically look nicer on your quilt top, and you may not notice that this block went a little bit wonky. So you've got multiple ways to work with that scale feature. You've got your touch screen, you have your plus and your minus both horizontally and vertically. You've got your sliders. You can always set the size you want. And then on those mid and top of the line models, you've got your auto scale, either with or without your proportion lock, and you've got that morph. So there's a lot of different ways you can change the scale or size of a pattern that you've got loaded in your robotic system to fit the needs of your quilt top. I hope this was helpful information for all of you. I tend to use a combination of all of those different scale features depending on what I'm working on. It just makes it easier to have options available. Sometimes one thing's going to work. Sometimes you want to fine tune a little bit with another option. It's really just a matter of what you're comfortable with and what you like using. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I appreciate y'all being here. Have a happy weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.